Welcome, everyone, to Civil Disobedience TV. I'm your host, George Donnelly. We're celebrating Martin Luther King Day by honoring his legacy, not with service, but with the disobedience of unjust laws and illegitimate authorities, which, frankly, I think is more in line with his legacy than service, however admirable that may be. And our next guest right now is Ian Freeman, host of Free Talk Live and famous liberty activist in New Hampshire. How you doing, Ian?
Hey, George, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. It's my pleasure. So, Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you. Do you consider yourself an activist? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty much a lifelong activist, and I moved to New Hampshire in 2006 as part of the Free State Project. I chose Keene because of the civil disobedience that was happening here. It was really inspirational to me, and so that's why I'm here in Keene, New Hampshire. I'm also the host of Free Talk Live. I program the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM, and I'm a blogger at freekeene.com.
So there was even civil disobedience happening in Keene before you arrived. I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Russell Canning and Kat Canning, the publishers of the New Hampshire Free Press, they did some really groundbreaking stuff. Kat and Lauren Canario, I'm sure you're familiar with her.
Sure, yes.
Okay, well, Lauren Canario lived here before I did too, and she was also instrumental in doing civil disobedience up this way. Her and Kat were both arrested in the IRS office for basically sitting down. I think Kat was sitting down holding a sign, and Lauren was standing in the IRS office, and they were told to leave. And when they didn't, the federal cops were called in. In addition, Russell Canning has done various civil disobedience that there's been so much that it's hard to even think of it all. He's been arrested probably more times than any activist up here has.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't even realize that he had lived in Keene once. So, Ian, what unjust law or illegitimate authority have you disobeyed?
Oh boy, just this past year I was arrested a few times. One of the big ones was the so-called Disobedience 7 here in Keene when Heike, who's a New Hampshire native, was arrested for drinking a beer in the park. We were all at Social Sundays, which is a weekly social event, and we got a call over the radio that Heike was being harassed by the police and possibly going to be arrested. So a bunch of us rushed down to the park, and at that point they were getting closer to arresting her. They were just all over her for enjoying a nice day and a nice afternoon in the park. And so I decided that I couldn't let this stand after being inspired by David Cruz and Lauren Canario, who had stood in front of a police car earlier in the year. I decided earlier that I was going to do that the next chance it was appropriate to, and I figured kidnapping a young woman for enjoying an afternoon in the park was reason enough to stand in front of a police car. So I did that, and Meg McLean did that. I believe you talked to her earlier today. Another guy named Wes was with us, and Rich Paul. So we had 4 people standing in front of the police cars as they attempted to kidnap this young lady. That was one of the things. The other thing was drinking at a city council meeting, which technically wasn't civil disobedience, but they arrested me for it anyway.
Yeah, I remember especially seeing the video of you guys in front of the police cruiser. And as I mentioned to Meg this morning, that's something that I really admire because, it's not just taking a stand or protesting or saying the right thing. That's actually putting your body in harm's way in the defense of another person. And so kudos to you. I really admire that, Ian. And frankly, from watching some of the things you've done over the years, it's inspired me as well.
Well, good. I hope it does inspire, the next wave of activism. Right now, Meg and myself and some others are facing multiple charges. I've got 5 misdemeanor counts that I still got to go to jury trial on. So who knows what will end up happening with that. Obviously, there's risk involved in this, but if a bunch of people take a little bit of risk, then it doesn't have to be as heavy on one person. And that's, I think, something that can happen here in New Hampshire, where if we had, say, 30 people standing in front of the cop cars instead of 4, imagine what that could have done.
That would be impressive. So as you were standing, in front of the cop car, how did you feel? What were you thinking at that moment?
Well, I was hoping more people would do it, honestly. Although there have been some interesting suggested strategies as to how to do that in the future in a more effective manner. Uh, Nonetheless, it would always be nice if we had more people doing civil disobedience. But I understand why people don't. I mean, they're frightened. The government is a scary group of folks, and a lot of people don't want to go into a cage. And I think that if we can show folks that there's a limited amount of disobedience, that it can make it easier for folks, where if you've got people on the outside that are taking care of you, or feeding the cat while you're in there, that might make it more possible for people to do these sorts of things. It seems like it's been pretty powerful when a handful of folks have done it, and I can only imagine what it would be like if we had dozens. I think that there could really be some significant change that would come out of that. I don't know if I answered your question though.
Yes. So, how have police and judges and bailiffs and, prison guards and whatnot, how have these people reacted to your civil disobedience?
I would say that the reaction is generally mixed. I don't know how many of them have necessarily come out and praised it. However, certainly there are some of them who would rather not have to deal with it. They understand the issue. I've had many conversations with Keene police, and a lot of them, they get it on things like the war on drugs, or at the very least legalizing marijuana. So that, considering that, it's likely that some of them are privately amused by it. I would say the reaction is always going to be ranged, and of course, the most vociferous critics may not even live around here. I don't know. Usually they just comment anonymously on the internet.
So, as you were thinking back perhaps to the first time you consciously committed civil disobedience, did you struggle with that decision, or did it come easily?
Boy, I don't even know if I can remember what the first time was. I know the first time I was put in jail was over the couch situation. How easy it was? I don't want to go into a cage, and it was certainly more difficult after I saw the ramifications. It was probably easier before I went into the cage than afterward. I did have a girlfriend at the time, and it was pretty upsetting. The incident was pretty upsetting to her,
that.
and of course that upset me as well. I didn't realize it was going to have that kind of effect on her, so that was pretty tough. After the fact, doing it beforehand was not that difficult. It seemed natural. I'm so fed up with the government people and how they hurt folks. Just the more you get fed up, the more likely it is going to be easier for you to do this sort of thing. So for me, it was the right time. It was the right place. I mean, it was a property rights issue at that time, and I felt like that I wasn't hurting anybody, so this was the right thing to do. And similarly, with standing in front of the police car, that seemed to be the right thing to do in that case as well. So you just have to accept whatever the worst case scenario is up front, and then you can go from there. Once you've accepted that, they don't really have much power over you.
Yeah. Although, I remember the first time went into a jail, was put into a jail cell, into a cage, and it became a lot more real after that.
I bet. That was the federal thing, right?
Well, no, actually, before that, I was harassed by a cop for open carrying, and I just refused to give him my ID. So, it escalated to where he put me into a cage for about 30 minutes before letting me go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Ian, do you dislike all laws or just some? And how do you decide which ones to obey and which ones to not obey?
Well, I have a respect for the idea of what I would consider natural law, the idea that actions have consequences, and that we should do what's right, not harm others, and that when you do harm others, that there will be consequences to those actions. So I don't really concern myself with man laws so much as I just kind of concern myself with treating other people as they should be treated. So yeah, I don't really know what the man laws are typically until they shove them in my face and tell me I've broken one of them.
And did your friends or family criticize you for doing these, for committing civil disobedience?
I don't know if I would consider them friends, but certainly people have criticized me. I would say that generally friends are supportive even if they disagree with you, and maybe some of my friends would disagree, but certainly I don't recall hearing anything particularly vociferous from people I would consider friends. There's a certain group of very anti-civil disobedience activists up here in New Hampshire, and obviously there's plenty of critique that comes from them. There's plenty of critique that comes from people that would suppose that they're in the community. At least they post on the local newspapers comment section, and a lot of people are unfriendly to the ideas of, say, for instance, smoking a joint in the park or whatever. You're always going to have critics, whether they are my friends that are critiquing me. I don't know. Mark Edge has certainly critiqued me, and I consider him a friend. So.
And what do you say to these critics, especially the ones who, for example, would say, the law is the law, and you must obey all laws, even if you don't like them, even if you feel they're wrong? What do you say to those kinds of people?
Well, first of all, I'd say no. And then aside from that, the reason I'm not going to obey all the laws is because bad laws deserve to be disobeyed. I believe, I don't have the quote in front of me, I'm sure you do, since it's Martin Luther King Day, there's some sort of paraphrase, a quote that he said, basically saying it was his duty to disobey bad laws.
Yes, absolutely. And, he quoted St. Augustine frequently, an unjust law is no law at all. So,
Yep.
let's see. I have a question from a listener who goes by the nickname Lemon, and he wants me to ask you if you think civil disobedience will, the intensity or the frequency will decrease now that some of the activists are on, either facing jail time or on these suspended sentences.
Well, I don't know. I mean, from those activists, it likely will, but when Kat Canning and Russell Canning were arrested, I don't think that stopped anybody else from doing civil disobedience. If anything, the harsher they punish people, if that's the direction they go in, typically that inspires others. I mean, there are frequently people that come here that say they were inspired by perhaps Sam Dodson or myself or Lauren Canario, whatever their story. More people that, the more punishment there is around civil disobedience, the more attention that tends to get. So I guess that question is, only going to be answered by the other people out there, right? Whoever's next. And inevitably that will happen. I don't think civil disobedience is going away anytime soon, but it's also the kind of thing that, I'm certainly not privy to anybody else's plans as far as what they intend to do regarding civil disobedience in the future. So that's up to you to create. If you're going to be here in New Hampshire or if you're going to do it somewhere else, I wish you the best of luck. I'd recommend being here.
Excellent. So I really appreciated, Ian, that you took the time to come and talk with us, and I think we had a great conversation. I've really enjoyed, hearing your answers to the questions. Before we go, do you have any projects you'd like to plug to our audience?
Oh, sure. Freekeen.com, that's my blog, and that's where you'll see a lot of the, we talked about the Lauren Canario, the Russell Cannings, all those folks. As much of the civil disobedience as we can has been put up there, the video footage. So if you want to see footage of the historic 420 celebrations, that's all there. So it's really quite the repository for civil disobedience information as far as stuff that's happened here in New Hampshire. And it's not just Keene. Sometimes we focus on disobedience that has happened elsewhere in the state. So I'd recommend that, and I'd recommend highly to everybody watching and listening, please consider a move to New Hampshire. If you think civil disobedience is exciting, then you can make it happen in a much more effective manner up here, I think, because you've got people backing you up. And I just don't know of any other places around the world where the hundreds of people have moved to. Granted, not all hundreds are engaging in civil disobedience, but imagine if they did. I mean, certainly the more people we get involved in whatever ways as possible is better. I mean, the more people doing civil disobedience, the more people doing political action, anything goes up here, and there's all kinds of opportunities for people to not only get involved in taking action, but also to get involved in a social scene that, for me, did not exist down in Florida. So it's been a great experience so far. It's been 4 years for me. New people are coming up every single month. Go to freestateproject.org and get on board if you want to really see something change.
Amen. A lot of great stuff is happening in New Hampshire, and it's really thanks to the movement of people who've gone there as a result of the Free State Project and freekeen.com. That's KEENE freekeen.com. Well, thanks a lot, Ian, and I wish you a great day.
Thanks, George. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.